I sold a lot of Bitcoin on the street in New Zealand. I was the largest Bitcoin seller in New Zealand for a couple of years. Aging myself here, but since WikiLeaks did the collateral murder video, debanked by Hillary Clinton in 2010, Reuters was trying to find out who killed their journalists.
Yeah.
And that really radicalized me. Oh, maybe one person shouldn't be in charge of all the banks. I used to audit bridges. Anytime you make any mistake, or there's a protocol upgrade, or anything changes, sketchy. What bridges mostly try and do, they take assets from one chain and put it on another. We're, in many ways, much simpler than that. What we do is we give every single smart contract on Polkadot a private key. Practically what this means is if you have an application, you can generate a whole bunch of deposit addresses like a centralized exchange, call any smart contract, mint a meme coin, do anything you like.
How could this augment hydration?
We're currently working with Hydration on their implementation. We're making pallets with them to get them on board. The first thing they're doing is native Bitcoin deposit addresses. No more sort of wrapping Bitcoin.
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys. We're blasting off with David Millar-Durant. He's the CEO of Sig Network. Now, you might not have heard of it before, but you will definitely after the Sub-Zero event, where we're recording right now. Very lucky to have him with us. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're filming this before you go on stage. How do you describe Sig Network?
We describe Sig Network basically as a way of not caring about what blockchain you deploy on.
Okay.
So the big problem right now is if you're a developer, you have to pick one silo. And you gamble on that silo and you say, look, I think today this silo is great, and it lets me access 30% of all the assets in the world.
A silo like Solana's a silo.
Solana, Ethereum, Polkadot,
yeah.
they're all silos. They give you access to a subset of the total ecosystem. What our technology is we're just trying to make it so you can access just everything. So you can, if you deploy an application to Polkadot, which is where we're sort of building this stuff on right now, you'll be able to natively use any asset. You'll be able to natively use any liquidity. So you could deposit mainnet Ethereum, swap it on Uniswap, deposit it in Aave, move it across to Radium, do whatever you like. And also be called from those ecosystems. So you're not missing out on the ability to reach Solana users, because a Solana user can call our contract from Solana and then directly interact with you and swap your Bitcoin for XRP. So we're really trying to get rid of those. We call ourselves blockchains without borders, and that's what we're building.
And it's a very unique approach. So we have bridges, which everybody's familiar with, generally fairly centralized around a multi-sig or a small protocol. Recently, we had light client bridges that the Polkadot ecosystem is experimenting with. The Snow Bridge to Ethereum is currently undergoing upgrades to be able to call Ethereum contracts, which is pretty cool. Hyperbridge is amalgamating the states of all these networks it's attached to. You're doing something different. In your presentation, you're calling it virtual parachains. And for those who aren't familiar with the Polkadot ecosystem, basically roll-ups, virtual roll-ups, virtual parachains. What's the approach?
So the big difference between us and bridges is what bridges mostly try and do is they take assets from one chain and put it on another. And the second thing they'll do is they'll let two applications that want to talk using a bridge talk to each other. We're in many ways much simpler than that. What we do is we give every single smart contract on Polkadot a private key. And we say, look, you can just call any chain, any asset you want. Individually. So you can, any asset you have deposited, you can use fully. It's like giving a MetaMask wallet to your smart contract. And the way this manifests on Polkadot, because Polkadot has all these amazing cross-chain functionality.
The XCM.
XCM, exactly. Every single Polkadot app is built to be cross-chain. And the way this technology manifests on Polkadot is we can say, look, you have a piece of technology, your application can do anything on Moonbeam. Point it at Ethereum and you can do anything there. And the end goal for us is we want things to be multi-chain by default. So any application deployed to Polkadot will be able to move Bitcoin, interact with Ethereum, interact with Hyperliquid, interact with Solana, without even really realizing they're going across chains. And that's kind of, we feel like that is the original vision of Polkadot in a lot of ways, which is having this the relay chain be the central layer which communicates everything. But we're doing this in a much less principled way. We're not trying to bring everyone onto Polkadot. We're saying you guys are fine where you are, but we're giving you a private key. We're letting you use it, and we're telling you what happens, and we're translating it all through XCM.
And then how are you pulling this off technically? Like when you say virtual parachains, does this mean like the state of Ethereum is on a roll-up on Polkadot, or what does that actually mean?
So we don't like taking that approach because when you try to mirror state, you have to do a bug-for-bug implementation of that state. And I used to audit bridges. Anytime you make any mistake, or there's a protocol upgrade, or anything changes,
it's chaos.
It's chaos. If you can find any divergence in Taka, you can take all the money out of it.
Yeah.
What we do is really, really simple.
Okay.
You send a message to our Parachain saying, hey, I'd like to chat to Ethereum.
It's just one parachain.
Yeah, we haven't quite decided on that.
Okay.
Parachains are quite expensive, so
Okay, yeah.
ideally we'd like to have one parachain per network we communicate with, but
Yeah.
practically it kind of makes sense to have just the one.
Okay.
So what you do is you call our parachain, you send an XCM message saying, hey, I'd like to talk to this Ethereum application. We translate that into a signed Ethereum payload from your private key. That Ethereum payload goes off, it takes an action on the Ethereum chain. We then have an MPC network, which has people, they all individually run Ethereum nodes, they observe that transaction went through, and they send you a signed message back that gets turned into an XCM message, kind of a response. I know XCM is unidirectional, but it says, yeah, that transaction went through. And then we can do whatever needs to be done with that. We can do refunds, we can make sure balances are lined up. So we keep it super simple, super lightweight. And the benefit of that is you're not asking us for features. If you're a developer, you can do anything you like. You can send any message, you can do anything you could do with a private key, but just entirely from your smart contract. So practically what this means is if you have an application, you can generate a whole bunch of deposit addresses like a centralized exchange. You can call any smart contract, you can mint a meme coin, you can basically do anything you like, and we're not going to stand in your way.
Okay, let's drill down to even more of a practical example here. So let's say, how could this augment like hydration, for instance?
I'm glad you asked, because hydration, we're currently working with hydration on their implementation.
Okay.
We're making pallets with them to get them on board.
Yeah.
The first thing they're doing is native Bitcoin deposit addresses. So no more sort of wrapping Bitcoin, thinking about it, getting it in, all this kind of stuff. You say, hey, send it to this address. They sweep it into a pool. Suddenly, you're borrowing against Bitcoin.
Could I just even transfer Bitcoin from an account from hydration?
Yeah. So you can be on your centralized exchange.
Yeah.
Deposit your Bitcoin straight into your personal sort of account.
Right.
You can trade it around, and then you
Right.
can withdraw how much Bitcoin you have left over.
And I'm doing all this from my Substrate private key.
I mean, you're doing it from however you want to interact
However
with
I
hydration.
interact with hydration.
And the way you deposit your stuff is you do it straight out of Coinbase. You can do it straight out. There's no special signing. There's no special messages.
Yeah.
It's all just.
I just drop it into a Bitcoin address that I control from hydration.
It's a really boring technology because it just works how you'd want it to work.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so what are the trust assumptions here?
The trust assumptions are, so we have a network of nodes.
Yes.
Now
you call it MPC network.
MPC network.
Can you expand on what that means?
Sure. I love a bit of jargon. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're trying to undo that actually in the Zico. Yeah.
Yeah. Multi-party computation. What it means practically is that we have a large network of nodes. They all hold a share of a key. People can rotate in and out.
Yeah.
That key is never assembled. And what happens is they observe a request on the Polkadot ecosystem saying, hey, I'd like you to sign something using my key.
Okay.
And then they all generate what's called a signature share, which is they generate a signature, they all get combined together, and then it gets whacked back on chain. And Hydration is going to be running one of those. We're hoping to get the Polkadot Foundation to run one of these nodes. And the security guarantees are, unless 2/3 of the nodes collude, you're completely fine. And it's incredibly secure.
How are the nodes incentivized to not collude?
So we are basically a whitelisted set of validators right now.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that is I've worked at a lot of different large, very complex foundations over the years. And what they tend to do is they tend to build a beautiful, very incredibly decentralized protocol that no one wants.
No, of course, yeah.
And we like to build in the open, see what people want, get the stuff out, and iterate.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have right now is very, very secure. Mm-hmm. But it could be more decentralized, and as we build out, we're going to decentralize more and more nodes, staking, slashing, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But whitelisted validators is fine for now.
Yeah, I mean, even Polkadot rollups usually start with a set of whitelisted validators, and Polkadot did as well, I believe, and then we eventually decentralized. But this is something that you want to do.
Oh yeah.
If the users want it, or
you never want to be the least decentralized partner system.
Yeah.
So right now we come to people and we say, look, if you're on Polkadot, today you can access roughly 1% of the DeFi world. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you the other 99%.
Yeah, right.
That's a very, very compelling argument.
Of course.
Now, at some point, we want to go to the Aves of this world and the Uniswaps of this world. And we'll say to them, like, all right, you guys can access 75% of the world, and we'll give you the other 25%.
Sure.
And we don't want to make them any less decentralized when we do that. So what we're aiming for is to be as decentralized as someone like Polkadot or someone like Ethereum.
Right.
In the sort of medium to long term.
Yeah, I get it.
And just not worry too much about that now and get technology into people's hands as quickly
No,
as possible.
and I see that that trade-off makes a lot of sense, right? If you don't have access to a large piece of the DeFi ecosystem, of course you're willing to take a few more risks to get access. But if you're something like Uniswap, you don't want to mess around, right?
Exactly. And we're, as I say, super secure, just not super decentralized right now. But decentralized enough.
No, I get it. No, thanks for clarifying that as well. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, you started Sig Network how long ago?
It wasn't just me. It was so me and a bunch of guys. We've been working together for years.
Okay.
And we were working at NEAR at that point in time. We were doing the emerging technologies for NEAR. And the remit I got given was we want to appeal to people who don't give a shit about blockchains.
Yeah.
And what we worked out was people who don't care about blockchains are generally sort of, they just want to take an action. They don't care where you are.
Yeah.
So we built out this technology called chain signatures. And we decided eventually that this technology is much better on a lot of different chains than just on one chain. So we left our cushy foundation jobs, spun out and built this thing. And we've been working together kind of like we initially were kind of a bit of a collective, and then I got elected to be the face of the thing because I have an English accent and I'm probably the worst coder out of the group. So that's
perfect.
That's how you get
English accent is 50%
exactly.
of the way.
You can have an IQ of 70, deep voice English accent. People are like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. That's
awesome.
But before that, I've been using Bitcoin since. I don't think I'm aging myself here, but since WikiLeaks did the collateral murder video, they got like debanked by Hillary Clinton in 2010.
Whoa!
And we were going around trying to sort out like ways to get the money.
What got you into Bitcoin back then?
So basically, they got debanked by the U.S. State Department
because of this. Okay,
yeah, exactly. So they released a video. Reuters was trying to find out who killed their journalists.
Yeah.
And they did like FOI requests, all this kind of stuff. Got stonewalled. Said the videos didn't exist. It got leaked. WikiLeaks showed these videos, which are really quite disturbing videos.
Yeah.
And then they attempted to cut off their ability to host the videos by cutting off their bank accounts and cutting off their ability to accept MasterCard, accept Visa payments, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, wow.
And that really radicalized me into the whole like, oh, maybe one person shouldn't be in charge of all the banks.
Oh, damn, okay.
Yeah, and then we sort of got into, went around, we managed to get our hands on some Bitcoin, we sent it in, it got used for servers, all that kind of stuff, and I've been kind of using it ever since.
That's rad.
I'm really a means to an end guy. I love, if you can do something fun with crypto, then that's the whole reason of doing it. And then I sold a lot of Bitcoin on the street in New Zealand.
Okay.
I was the largest Bitcoin seller in New Zealand for a couple of years.
Wow.
Largely on the street. Great way to get mugged. I highly recommend it.
Did you ever get in trouble with the law?
Back then, the New Zealand Central Bank gave guidance and government gave guidance, which is like, it's literally just like a one-line thing. Just be careful. Just be careful. It could be risky. It was a super chill time.
Wow.
And then after that, some things went wrong in my life. I ended up in investment banking. We all make decisions we regret. I was working as a quant on the trading floor and then kind of got back into crypto from there. So like doing sort of trying to find ways to get rid of settlement risk by getting a bunch of sort of banks on blockchain in 2018.
Yeah.
Something called Canton, really cool.
Okay.
And then Definity, which was honestly sort of an amazing research team building this sort of the internet computer.
IPC, yeah.
Internet computer, exactly right.
ICP.
Really sort of found probably 3-4 years ahead of their time.
Yeah.
But the thing I learned there was like, you can have the best tech, but if you don't get people in the door, people can't build a business on it. It doesn't matter. And then sort of smart contract auditing and to near. So yeah, I've been everywhere and nowhere.
Well, talking about the best tech versus getting people in the door, here you are deploying in the Polkadot ecosystem, and this has often been a criticism of this ecosystem as well. Incredible tech, but we're still looking for that big product market fit. Now, of course, we have a few amazing deployments appealing to mass markets, but still shy of its potential. What exactly brought you over to Polkadot?
So we deployed first on Solana and Ethereum.
Okay, so you're already over there.
In order for you to communicate with one of these chains, we have to be deployed in every chain you talk to. Because you've got to send a message and you've got to get a response back.
Sure.
We were building in the open, but we were saying to ourselves, look, we have to build a way to have async DeFi. Sort of async communication between different networks. We have to find a way to attach token deposits. We have to find ways to serialize transactions between VMs which are different. And we were working on that. We have a great team. It was coming along. And then what we have to do after that is we have to go to every single builder and say like, hey, adopt these new technologies, adopt these new APIs.
Yeah.
And I got chatting to a Polkadot guy just sort of randomly. And I just realized you guys have spent 10 years building all this stuff for us.
You're right, it's already, yeah.
Exactly. I looked at XCM and I said, because what's happening right now, and a lot of people don't realize this, is crazy amounts of venture capital money is going into the first technology that can make a smart contract that runs everywhere. And there's 3 ways to do that. One is you build your own network from scratch with sort of custom technology, and then what you have to do is you have to go out, you have to attract people there.
I feel like that phase is already cresting. Like it's like everybody's trying to build their own L1.
People are still doing it in the interop space, and it's a terrible way to do it because you spend 5 years building that up. And the next one is you say, okay, I've got a relatively mature ecosystem, I'm going to try and build on top of this. And again, like that was the approach we were taking, but like we can cut a year off our dev time using XCM. And the thing we're really excited for in the sort of medium to long run is we want to make every single application on Polkadot like multi-chain by default.
Okay.
So if you have a lending protocol, you don't even think about it. Suddenly people are depositing Bitcoin. And suddenly it goes from this sort of slightly parochial corner of the DeFi world to having the biggest reach of any chain. And that's all that matters. The reason that Ethereum transactions cost 50 cents and some other EVM transaction costs 1 cent, and they can charge that, is the pricing power comes from reach. That's all anyone, if you're an institution, if you're a venture capitalist, if you're a builder, all you care about is who can I talk to and who can talk to me.
Of course.
And if we get this right, Polkadot is going to be the only ecosystem where you can talk to everyone and everyone can talk to you, where you're no longer picking a segment of the market, you're picking 100% of the market when you deploy.
Okay, so here's a question. If this all gets deployed in the way you hope it does, would somebody on Solana be able to call a smart contract on Ethereum?
That's exactly it. They would be able to do that, but it would be slightly more awkward than on Polkadot.
Okay, what would that look like?
So it's relatively simple. You just have to use our library. So normally on Ethereum, you say, I want to transfer some funds. And then immediately you get a response back in that single transaction saying, hey, you transferred those funds. Fantastic. And every smart contract is built around that assumption. When you start using Sig, what you have to do is you have to say, I want to send some funds. Then you have to wait for a subsequent block, and then it says, yep, that transaction went through, you had funds, all that kind of stuff.
Right, which is really how XCM is anyway, right?
Exactly. So that's how it works on Ethereum. So you need to change your smart contract to do that on Ethereum.
Oh, okay.
So you need to use our library, you need to have ways of sort of keeping track of that, and we help you a lot with that.
Yeah.
But on Polkadot, it all works like that already.
Right.
So we can do it without people even redeploying their code later on.
That's cool.
So the conversation I have to have with someone on Solana is, hey, how would you like to spend 2 weeks or a month developing this? The conversation I have with the developer on Polkadot is, it already works. Like just turn it on in your front end. And that's we think that's why we're excited about the Polkadot ecosystem.
Still, could be worth it for somebody on Solana, right, to suddenly have access to all this liquidity and technology on Ethereum, no?
Certainly, but what we're hoping for is, so we're working with Hydration, and because Hydration is going to be the first sort of big DeFi protocol to be building on top of us, we have builders on Solana who need a cross-chain DEX and need a cross-chain lending protocol. And what we're going to say to them is like, look, the most mature place right now that you can do this on is Polkadot. And you will have the most, if you want to do a Bitcoin Ethereum swap, you shouldn't be sending that message to Ethereum, you should be sending that message to Polkadot. And it's faster finality, it's cheaper, and you get these assets deposited natively into your Solana account. And we think that sort of composability is really, really interesting. Because we want to use the Polkadot ecosystem to jumpstart the kind of things you can do across chains. And maybe that's where the ecosystem grows, or maybe it grows on Solana, or maybe it grows on Ethereum, but it's just faster here.
Amazing.
And that's getting out the gate quickly is how you win.
So you're really using Polkadot tech because it makes your product better.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
Exactly. Like Polkadot is, so, sort of the 3 options we had were Avalanche, Cosmos, and Polkadot. Avalanche has slightly faster finality. It's got a slightly bigger ecosystem. But the problem it had was it was too centralized around the C chain. So everything was built to be doing that sort of synchronous DeFi stuff. Cosmos was, again, a bit more difficult because it's much more sort of diffuse. The chains tend not to communicate with each other that much. They tend to just do their own thing. And Polkadot was kind of just the right amount of sort of diffuse and for us. So it really is, it's a sort of Goldilocks spot for us, and we're really excited about it.
That's amazing.
So we're not here to get grant money. We're not here because we think that we just believe it's the best tech, and we want to pull the ecosystem along with us, get people excited, get people building, and really inject some vigor back into the DeFi space here. Because I want people to be excited about using Polkadot. And one of the problems that Polkadot had previously was if you see a DeFi product on Ethereum, and you say, hey, why don't you guys move to Polkadot? The switching cost is their whole business.
Right, okay.
Because, the asset, the customers you have are gone, the assets you have are gone, the protocols you use are gone, even the RPCs you have are gone. But what we hope is in the future, when Web3 Foundation goes, someone says that, you say, look, you can access all the same assets. You can use all the same users. You can have everything you previously had, and you can write it in Rust. You can write it in EVM. You can do whatever you like, and you get Bitcoin. And you get Hyperliquid, and you get like Solana. Hyperliquid's a little bit down the line, and you get Solana. But we are not taking anything away from you. We are just adding things to you.
Okay.
We think that us being mixed with Polkadot, Polkadot gives us so much, and we're hoping to give a lot to Polkadot.
Okay, let's talk about what it looks like down the line. So right now, we were talking before, you're raising right now.
Yep.
So you're looking to gather the resources, and you need to actually pull this off. Once that's ready, and I guess you're already building.
Oh, the team is always building.
Team's always been. You guys have been building actually without funds for.
Yeah, we've been building for a year. Mostly out of basically me, the team, and a couple of my mates' pockets, because we really believe in this tech.
Okay. What does deployment look like? How is it going to roll out? What's the order?
So it's going to start being really rough around the edges, because we like building with people building with us.
Yeah.
So to start with, it's going to be very much like, okay, you got to construct this EVM transaction.
Okay.
You've got to use a library. You've got to send the message. You've got to really think about what you're talking to.
Sure.
And so if you want to be on the bleeding edge, if you want to be the cross-chain lending protocol, you've got to take those sharp edges. So if you say, I want to do Bitcoin versus Hyperliquid lending, you've got to take those sharp edges, because it's going to be like that for the next sort of 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And then after that, we're going to sort of gradually integrate more and more. And
is Bitcoin first?
So it's going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum first, and then Solana probably a month afterwards, and then Hyperliquid probably a month or two after that. And we can add chains really, really quickly once we get going.
Okay.
All EVMs kind of look the same to us. And it's just a matter of us getting how much do we invest in sort of the depth of the tooling versus the sort of width of who you can talk to. That's going to be a decision we make based off what our builders want.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so really sort of the call to action here is, if you have a Polkadot app and you want to make it cross-chain, come and talk to us. Help us understand your problem. We have a grant system where we can give you developers who work for a project for free to get you integrated, and let's get you building some really cool stuff.
Okay, very exciting stuff. Like I said, we're recording this before your talk, but I definitely recommend everybody go and check out the full talk now. I saw the presentation. It's going to be very exciting. Any particular part of your talk that you were excited about?
I think we're going to be announcing dates of when we're going live, which is good. We're going to be digging into the technical details. And I just really want to, get this product out into the Polkadot ecosystem. Get as many people as interested as possible, because we can't do this without the Polkadot community. And we hope we can make the Polkadot community a much better by being here.
Awesome. David, thank you very much for coming on the show, and looking forward to the deployments and catching up later.
Thanks, Evan.